On March 17, 1990, the streets of Boston, Massachusetts were filled with parade goers and others celebrating St. Patrick's Day. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, located a few blocks behind Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center and Boston's Children's Hospital, was locked and late-night security guards were making their regular rounds. Around 1:28 a.m. that evening, something began at the museum that would change many lives of the people involved, not necessarily for the better. At the security desk, two policemen appeared on the museum's closed-circuit monitor. They were at the employee entrance at the side of the building. One of the guards on duty answered the buzzer.
Boston police. We're responding to a disturbance.
Based on that response alone, the guard buzzed them in. The problem, of course, was that these two men were not Boston police officers. They were there to steal precious artwork from the museum. Over $500 million worth, as it turns out. Whether the thieves were professionals or amateurs is still up for debate. Regardless, this particular heist turned out to be the largest theft of property, any property, in American history. It remains the largest unsolved art heist in world history. Welcome to the Solved Crimes Podcast, where we present the most perplexing and unsolved crime mysteries of all time. In all seriousness, you may be able to help solve a real crime mystery. In this episode, we delve into the ballsy art heist at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston, Massachusetts, that occurred in 1990. It is a crime that has puzzled investigators and art lovers around the globe, including the FBI, for over 3 decades. Was this the job of seasoned international art thieves? Was it some local Boston thugs who happened to get away with the biggest robbery of their lives? Did the robbers have help from the inside? At the time of the heist, the museum was in the middle of updating their antiquated security system. Think that was a coincidence? We'll explore fairly recent updates, what is known at this time, and why investigators believe a long-haired, self-described hippie rocker dude must have been in on it. In 1902, Boston heiress Isabella Stewart Gardner realized her dream of placing her own private art collection in her own museum so that the public could enjoy her art collection as she had. At the time, the world-renowned museum was known for housing the largest privately owned art collection in America. 88 years later, the museum began a new era of being famous for something else entirely. Things changed on March 18, 1990. At 8:15 a.m., the morning museum guards arrived to relieve the overnight shift. Every morning, the night crew was very happy to see the guards arrive so that they could go home and get some sleep after a long night at what most felt was a boring job. The arriving guards were utterly shocked to find the security desk was eerily empty. They attempted to get the guards on the security radios. There was no reply. The incoming guard crew slowly looked at one another. Without exchanging words, they all knew that the situation was very, very bad. there was no time to waste looking into this themselves. Boston police were immediately called. The real Boston police answered the phone.
Boston PD.
Police arrived and began canvassing the building for the missing guards. They were quickly found in the basement, handcuffed to pipes. Duct tape was tightly wound around their hands and feet. Journalist and author Stephen Kirchian.
The men are tied up with duct tape. Not only duct tape on their hands and feet, but also duct tape around their face and their eyes, and they look like hell.
Be sure to see our Instagram feed for actual crime scene photos and more. Young security guard Rick Abath had been the one who buzzed the thieves into the building. It was not an approved protocol. He explained to police at the time that they had looked and acted like Boston police. So in the moment, he let them in.
It is the biggest unsolved art heist in modern history, and tonight we have new developments to the infamous theft from the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum.
The security guard who was working at the time has died. NBC 10's Monica Medea is following this story. She joins us from the newsroom with the latest.
The museum confirmed Richard Abath's passing late today, and his attorney telling the Boston Globe he died at his Vermont home at the age of 57 after a long illness.
Sadly, Richard Abath passed away on February 23, 2024, just shy of the 24th anniversary of the Boston Art Heist. In a 2013 interview, Abath commented on his being an immediate suspect in the investigation.
Once I sat down with the FBI, I think the first thing I said was, well, what do you want to know? He finished cuffing me, and he cuffed my partner, and very dramatically said, gentlemen, this is a robbery. I knew. I was like, well, I'm the guy who opened up the door. They're obviously going to be looking at me.
Once inside, the perpetrators entered the building and approached the security station. Guards Rick Abath and Randy Heston, both in their 20s and inexperienced, were quickly sized up. One of the burglars told Abath that he looked familiar and that there may be a warrant out for his arrest. He told the young security guard to come out from behind the guard desk. Abath does as he's told and is quickly placed against the wall and handcuffed. See, there was a silent alarm trigger back behind the desk. Heston, just back from his rounds in the museum, was grabbed by the other man, shoved against a wall, and handcuffed. The men tell the guards that if they do as they are told, they will be fine. They are then quickly taken downstairs to the basement. This act didn't get past authorities. How did these men know that there was a basement? With the guards now secured, the two fake police officers took their wallets and then told them that they now knew where they both lived.
If you hold your tongues and don't say anything to the real police, you'll get a reward in about a year for your cooperation.
The thieves apparently knew that no one would be entering the building again until the guard shift change in the morning. To be sure that no silent alarm was tripped, they waited several minutes until they were sure that no one was coming. Once they felt confident that they had plenty of time and had the run of the place, the two men began the most famous art heist in history. The two heistmeisters made their way to the second floor and grabbed Rembrandt's Christ in the Storm on the Sea at Galilee and A Lady and Gentleman in Black off the wall. They smashed the paintings on the floor to remove the glass, and then they proceeded to cut the paintings out with a knife. No doubt, so they could simply roll the paintings up for their eventual escape. They took a self-portrait by Rembrandt off the wall, but it's painted on wood and apparently too large for them to take. They settled for another Rembrandt self-portrait of him as a younger man. It's the size of a postage stamp, and it was hanging just beneath the other portrait. Next, they take Vermeer's The Concert and Flink's landscape with an obelisk. Meanwhile, as they collect their stolen artwork, they periodically make trips to the side of the museum where their hatchback was parked, and they load the goods. They begin to try and remove a Napoleonic flag from its case. The flag proves to be too difficult to take, so they resolve to steal the bronze eagle finial by Chaudet from atop the flag's pole. 5 sketches by Degas are then taken out of their frames by the thieves. Moving to the first floor, they swipe Chez Tortoni by Manet. Almost as an afterthought, or maybe the next item on their shopping list, they grabbed a bronze goblet-shaped piece, or gu, that dated back to 12th century BCE China. Proving that they had somewhat of a plan, the men moved to the museum's security office and removed the videotapes. Yes, this was before off-site recording and certainly before the cloud. The machine had been recording footage from the security cameras. They also took the time to take the printouts made from the motion detectors, showing their movements in the museum. The one thing they weren't aware of was that the motion detectors also saved the images onto a hard drive. It was one of the few clues they left behind for investigators. The robbers then head to the basement to check on the security guards and to adjust their restraints for their comfort. How nice. They left the museum at 2:45 a.m. The art heist took all of 81 minutes. The initial value of the stolen art was estimated to be $200 million in 1990. In 2024, that estimate has more than doubled to $500 million. Half of that estimate goes to Vermeer's The Concert, now valued at $250 million. To view the stolen art and details about each piece, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum does a wonderful job of keeping up-to-date information on their website. A link is here in the description. 13 pieces of art were stolen that night, 2 of which were certified as ancient artifacts, the Chinese gu and the eagle finial. Within a few days of the heist, a reward of $1 million was offered for information leading to the recovery of the stolen artwork. Despite a flood of tips, police had little to go on. The case was quickly taken over by the FBI, since most believed that the artwork would eventually cross state lines, making it a federal crime. Retired FBI Special Agent Robert Whitman.
The first thing the police did after freeing the guards and getting their statements was search the museum for evidence.
While the overall heist is famously one of the most valuable, investigators and art experts were left scratching their heads. The thieves took the Degas sketches, worth relatively nothing compared to the other pieces, valued at $100,000. Curiously, they left without pilfering paintings worth way more, including ones by the likes of Michelangelo. Further perplexing, a painting on the 3rd floor, Botticelli's The Rape of Europa, left behind by the thieves, was known as the most valuable painting in the entire city at the time. Authorities believed that the 2 men were not hired by professional art collectors. They certainly didn't appear to be knowledgeable art thieves. Some fingerprints were found at the scene, but it was difficult for authorities to differentiate them from employees and visitors. Right away, security guard Rick Abeth came under pretty intense scrutiny based on several factors. One of Abeth's more peculiar moves that night was when he opened and then shut a side door to the museum. He claimed that he had done so in order to be sure the door was closing properly, and he further explained that he did this regularly. The problem with this explanation? It was that authorities learned that if Abeth had indeed been doing this as a part of his routine, The action would have been recorded on video and through motion detectors. Had that been the case, Abeth's supervisors assured police that they would have put a stop to the behavior immediately. Investigators believed that the opening and closing of the side door could have been a signal to the thieves that the coast was clear. Another sticking point with Abeth was the fact that the motion detectors had not picked up any movement in the room housing the Shea Tertoni. The last recorded movement in that particular room was by Rick Abeth, before the heist even began. This caused many to surmise that Abeth had removed the painting himself while his counterpart Randy Heston was manning the security station. The FBI ultimately came to the conclusion that Heston and Abeth were too young and incompetent to pull off such a heist. The next to come under suspicion was infamous Boston mobster Whitey Bulger. You may remember that he was famously played by Johnny Depp in the 2015 film Black Mass.
I'm sure the officer didn't stop us by accident. You wouldn't happen to be carrying a message now, would you?
In fact, I am.
You gonna lock me up for life or something?
You better watch yourself, Bulger.
You better fuck yourself, Flynn.
Bulger was not too happy about being implicated in the art heist. Reportedly, he was pissed off that someone pulled it off on his turf without his blessing, or his cut of the profits. Another avenue the FBI pursued was whether or not the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, was behind the museum robbery. The IRA had a history of pulling off art heists and then holding the art for ransom money. That, and the FBI was aware of the IRA having agents in the Boston area at the time of the museum heist. Known thief Brian McDevitt had previously attempted to abscond with a Rembrandt painting from the Hyde collection in Glens Falls, New York. He also fit the description of one of the Boston culprits. McDevitt denied his involvement and refused to take a polygraph test.
Nope.
Ultimately, when authorities compared his prints to those found in the museum, they were unable to make a match. In 2010, it came to light that at one point, known gangster Robert Guarente came into possession of at least some of the stolen museum artwork. Guarente's ex-wife told the FBI that Guarente had several of the paintings, but once he had been diagnosed with cancer, he had given them to another gangster, Robert Gentile. Gentile was indicted on drug charges in 2012. Are you keeping up with all this? The FBI tried to pressure him about the Gardner theft. They gave him a polygraph test, which showed that he was lying when asked whether or not he had knowledge of the heist and the whereabouts of the artwork. After the polygraph test, the FBI raided Gentile's home. All they found was a list of the stolen artifacts and paintings, and a curious hole dug in the floor of a shed in his backyard. The hole in the shed was now empty, but Gentile's son told them that at one point the shed had flooded, so his father had removed whatever it was that he kept in that hole. Gentile went to jail for 30 months on the drug charges, and when asked what he stored in the shed hole, he claimed that he couldn't remember, saying that it was probably some engines. The FBI offered him a reduced sentence if he revealed his knowledge of the art heist, but Gentile didn't take them up on their offer. While still not having any solid evidence, the FBI says that they feel they know the identity of the two art thieves, but they've withheld naming them publicly, claiming that they are believed to have died. Not to mention the fact that the statute of limitations expired quite a while ago. Art investigator from the Netherlands, Arthur Brand, seems very confident that it was the Irish Republican Army responsible for the heist.
We are focusing on the IRA. We have had talks with former members of the IRA, and after a few Guinness, after a few talks, you can see in their eyes that they know more.
The impact of the Boston heist on the art world has been profound. The stolen pieces are irreplaceable cultural treasures, and their loss has left a void in the art community. Isabella Stewart Gardner kept meticulous records of her art acquisitions. She was very protective of her collection and her legacy.
In my will, I want it clear that none of my art is ever to be sold after my death. I want everyone to have access to my treasured art collection.
Staying true to Isabella's wishes, it gives us, the public, a rare opportunity. To this day, you can visit the Gardner Museum in Boston to see the remnants of this infamous art heist. In the location where each piece of art hung on the walls in 1990, their empty frames still hang there. No doubt as a reminder of the heist, but also in hopes that the stolen pieces may one day be returned to complete Isabella Stewart Gardner's collection once again for all to enjoy. Hopefully, we have not heard the last of the biggest art heist in history. Sure, we'd love to know who the art thieves were and how they were able to pull it off, but more importantly, it would be a huge success to return as much of the precious art pieces as possible. They will be placed right back where they intrigued art lovers for nearly a century. The Gardner Museum is currently offering a $10 million reward for information leading to the recovery of the stolen works. A share of the reward to be given to any information leading to the recovery of any of the art pieces. A separate $100,000 reward is available for the return of the Napoleonic eagle finial. Longtime and current Museum Director of Security, Anthony Amore.
I walk by the empty frames a few times every day, and it's frustrating, because it's a reminder of what you haven't accomplished. The lesser-known pieces, not lesser valuable, but lesser-known, like the Degas sketches. Sometimes the scariest person involved has died. So, as morbid as this sounds, sometimes the passage of time and mortality play in our favor. We get a lot of calls and a lot of emails and letters, but they're not all leads. A lot of them are theories. We're looking for the right tip, that one bit of information that'll get us over the goal line.
What are your opinions on this head scratcher? Share your thoughts or insights into this case, or if there's a case that you think we should look into, we would love to hear from you. For more resources on the infamous Boston art heist, links are provided in this episode's description. Be sure to visit our Instagram page for actual crime scene photos as well as photos of the stolen artifacts from the Gardner Museum. Join us next time as we attempt to deconstruct more perplexing and unsolved crime mysteries. Stay vigilant.